Good evening, everybody, or good morning and good afternoon, depending on when and where you're watching this from. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeff. I am PTS for life. Joining me today is the incomparable, the I can't think of any more words, but
Insufferable.
insufferable. There you go. The all-knowing, I would say, very educated individual who helped me immensely when I was trying to wrap my head around the subject of Scientology, and that is Mr. Chris Shelton. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hey, I am great. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. Had some good dog time today, so I'm feeling the love, and that's always a good way to spend my day. So
Absolutely. I definitely had some Benson kettles today.
yeah.
Snuggles, not struggles, baby. That's what it's all about.
If I could get Raz to stay in one spot for a camera, I would, but he's always kind of moving around. So
Oh, yeah. Totally hear you on that.
looks like we've got some regulars in the chat here today. Maybe we can
Excellent.
take a sec here to acknowledge a few of them. Hello, Awaken. Love Sherlock. Hello from just slightly north of you in BC. Of course, the amazing SP Chef Samuel. Hello, how are you?
Excellent.
Who else we got? Inappropriate Heifer.
The
Clearwater
inappropriate
Cheryl.
heifer. That is probably one of my favorite.
There was another username yesterday. Make it go left, which I think was just hilarious. Anyway,
That is good.
hello,
That is good.
hello, everybody. It's so cool to see everyone here. You know, I love this community so much.
Oh,
Hello,
I
Lorna.
actually do too. I really do. It could be so awesome. People are
Cool.
awesome.
Well, enough of that love. Oh, wait, one more. Oh, yeah. So this is Gabrielle, very good friend Gabrielle. And it has started snowing in Ontario now, hasn't it?
Mm.
They're having some big snow event. So that's always going to be fun. That's
Ugh.
why I stayed in British Columbia.
We are having our snow just melting off right now, and I guess we're having more come back next week.
Oh,
Is where we're at here in Colorado.
well,
So,
if you ever want gray and rainy, come and see me in
oh,
BC.
I'm running. I
Yeah, I
can't
bet.
wait.
I bet. All right. Two more people to say hello to, of course, Mr. Alex, Apostate
Yay.
Alex, and
Alex is
Brad.
the
Hello,
host.
Brad. He was our Brad here. Ubique was our security guard at the IS protest, and he is a lovely man.
Excellent.
Cool. Now that we got some people on, Chris,
Yeah.
today we're going to be chatting about actually one of my favorite topics when I was in Scientology, and that is the Scientology training side of the Bridge to Total Freedom. Today we're just going to go over the very basics, like what it is, what it looks like, your role in it, of course, because you had a very major role in that. And from my perspective, it's going to be from the perspective of a student, someone who is actually going through the training itself. So I think that's going to be a really cool conversation. And then later on, we're going to delve into the basic steps of each course that is offered in Scientology,
Yep.
what it covers, and then kind of that whole process. It's going to be a long series, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Before we get started, though, I'd love to let people know how they can support both of us in our efforts to educate and speak out against Scientology. Of course, for Chris, you have a multitude of ways, and they're all linked in your channel,
Correct.
including PayPal and Venmo and so forth. You also have written an amazing book, which I think everybody should read, because it is literally A to Z new of Scientology, and it tells you everything you could possibly need to know.
That's right. That's exactly
For
right.
myself, I only have one simple way, actually two simple ways: like and subscribe. Make sure that you are, engaging yourself in the comments and so forth. If you'd like to support my channel financially, I don't do this for any money other than what people offer up, and that is, you can buy me a coffee if you would like. If not, that's totally fine too. All right. With all that stuff out of the way, Chris, what is Scientology training?
Oh my God, right? Hey, I thought we might start with a little bit of word clearing.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. No, I actually laughed earlier because one of the things that the multiple interviews over the years that I've done with John Atack has given me an appreciation of is how sneaky Hubbard could be, how clever he thought he was. And we're talking now on Hubbard, of course, right? And so he would sometimes have these inside jokes, these little things he would put out that, Scientologists would eat up and be like, oh, yeah, of course that's true. When in fact, it's just some big slap in their face. And this would be in various places. I mean, I kind of wonder at this point, knowing that about Hubbard, whether that whole Piltdown Man thing in History of Man was just some big, ha ha, let's see if they fall for this one kind of thing, because it was a big hoax.
He's pretty. I don't think though. I don't think he knew.
I don't think he did either, but he kept it in, and I did wonder about that, But here with training, I found something that is probably not like some sneaky, nefarious thing, but I did find it funny and interesting, because when we talk about training, I thought to myself, well, there's training like giving you training as a skill set or, knowledge that you need in order to carry out a function as a definition. But there's also training like a dog, like animals, like breaking people and training them as in conditioning them, which is, an old psych term. And that's, we don't want any of that, but that tends to be, I wanted to bring that up because that tends to be actually how Scientology training really works. It's more conditioning than it is learning.
Yeah. It's like Pavlovian almost. It's just building in automatic patterns, so there's no thinking.
That's right. And there's a funny, and so words are really big, and of course we'll probably talk about words, ad nauseum as we go through this whole thing, because it's such a big deal in Scientology training to have dictionaries and look up words. So I thought we'd start with train as a word, and sure enough, there's a derivation of this word, an etymology where it comes from, that goes back to Middle English train, which means to draw or drag, as in dragging something behind it, like a train. Like that's where the word train as a locomotive, that's where it came from, is it's dragging like a bridle train. It's dragging this thing behind it, and that's the sense of it. But there's another sense. There's another sense of the word, which is Middle English train, which means treachery, from Anglo-French, from traher, to betray. And I just thought, that's kind of what he did to us. So maybe it's worth highlighting.
Fitting.
There you go.
And, we're being very good Scientologists by clearing that derivation. So
yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're being very good.
I will say, as an anecdote for myself, that was probably the worst part of clearing a word for me, because I just never, ever saw the point.
Oh,
right?
Really?
Like I understood the point, but I didn't really agree with it, because it didn't, in my opinion, it never actually changed my understanding of the word or usage of the word personally.
That's right. And it wouldn't. It's really something for grammar nerds and language nerds to get into, etymologies. It can be fascinating if you're into that kind of thing. But to think you have to understand all that in order to have this full conceptual understanding.
Yeah.
Gets a little bit silly.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as kind of, training in Scientology, I guess I wanted to ask you, sort of to set the stage for this. For me, training was important right from the get-go. I was 15 years old, walked into the church, signed up for a 3-course package, starting with, I did them backwards. I started with the most advanced course first, which was the Professional TR's course. And then I went to the Student Hat. And then I did the Hubbard Qualified Scientologist course. So my trajectory was a little backwards from how people would usually do it. But I was curious, how did you first get into training in Scientology?
Well, having gone to a Scientology school my entire life, it's just natural. Because when I was in school, I did learning how to learn, study skills for life, basic study manual, all in school itself. And so the introduction to Hubbard technology was right from the start.
Right.
And of course, all of my teachers and so forth were all Scientologists, and they insisted upon using study technology. And then as I was getting older, around I think 10 or 11 is when I started showing interest in going to the organization from more than just a being babysat or looked after perspective, but actually going on to course. And now that I think about it, I actually don't specifically recall whether it was my origination or if it was a way
Mm.
to get me out of the way.
Oh,
But regardless, it happened. And I want to say the first course I ever did in an actual course room in Scientology would be the Success Through Communication course, which
mm.
is the easier version, the dumbed down version of the TRs, essentially.
Yeah.
So learning how to say, be there, communicate, say things, acknowledge, etc., have a conversation, essentially. And then I would do stuff like the personal values and integrity, the ups and downs in life course, all those very basic courses,
Right.
Dynetics course. Although I never finished that one because I just could not get through Dynetics. It was such jumbo to me. Mumbo
Oh God,
jumbo.
especially. And what were you, 12 or 13 at this point?
Yeah, I was pretty young at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having the same struggles trying to get through the extension course on that stupid book. They'd call me and pressure me, and I'd be like, okay, I'll try to read a chapter. And then I'd get 2 pages in, and I'd just be like, I have no idea what the hell this dude is saying. It's just so
Yeah.
lost.
Just to answer this question real quick. Yes,
Oh,
we
yeah.
were discussing tech training only today.
Yeah.
So we'll try and make it interesting.
Yeah, Scientology stuff. That's right. And
Um,
we're gonna want to break down in future episodes. Our plan here is to kind of go into individual course materials that we have and kind of break it down course by course in some ways. Not, I don't know that we're going to go through every single course, of course, but
yeah, each level
uh,
kind of thing.
but our experiences with it and some of the indoctrination, stuff like that.
Yeah. And that'll depend on you guys
Yeah.
watching, listening. Leave some questions, leave some comments in both of our videos. What do you want to see?
Yep.
Because ultimately we can sit here and talk to each other. I could sit and talk to you for hours, Chris. But if no one wants to hear it, then we'll just do that privately.
Exactly. Yeah, no, definitely let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely be doing some show and tell and stuff with all of that, right? Today is just going to be kind of a overview kind of thing, right? And I did a podcast years ago where I kind of talked about, the whole overview of Scientology training. I think it went on for like 3 hours or something. I kind of give all the breakdowns on it. We're going to do sort of a miniature version of that today, I think.
Yeah.
Where we can talk about how it's structured and what's important about training in Scientology. And the fact is that, according to L. Ron Hubbard's writings, training is more than 50% of what you should be involved in or doing in Scientology. He really wanted Scientologists to read his books, listen to his lectures, and get indoctrinated in how to become auditors.
Yep.
And in the 70s and 80s, when I got into Scientology, it was a different Scientology than it is now, because becoming an auditor was the be all end all of all of it, at least in the quarters I was in.
Yep.
And and this was in Pasadena, this was in California, but training and the whole priority that Hubbard puts on it in numerous writings make it clear that he was not bashful about this. He wanted Scientologists indoctrinated. And once you kind of start breaking down how he made training work as an indoctrination process, not a learning process, it makes sense why he was so heavy on it.
Yeah.
Because it's part of or it can be another clincher for people to keep them in and make sure that they think, because they've learned it. They didn't just get told it or hear it at a seminar or something. They learned it. It really brings that much more certainty and kind of insistence, sort of that extreme level of belief kind of thing enters in so much easier with that training. And I was certainly a training fanatic when I was a Scientologist. I thought learning Scientology was where it was at.
Yes. And same with me. Like, the reason I was recruited for the Sea Org originally when I was 14 was because I had started doing all these courses and I was getting into it. And I had a goal, a purpose in life to become an auditor. And of course, the recruiters push that button like crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, I know now that even if they promised me I was going to become a word clearer, or sorry, an auditor, or a tech terminal anyway of any kind, that's not guaranteed. I could be a janitor. I
Right.
could be anybody. I
Right.
could be data entry, because you just take the job that you're given.
That's right.
But they pushed that button hard with me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's how they got me. I was recruited specifically to be a course supervisor, and we'll break that down. I thought, let's see. Before we get into that, though, I thought we might go over. Now, this is all just from memory. I was curious if you could remember any of them. There's an issue in Scientology. This is so important that there's an issue in Scientology of 76 different reasons why training should be done. And these were lines given to the salespeople, to the registrars, to sell training. And this was sort of a little bit of a Bible for me for some time, because I would push this often to try to popularize or push training. Did you ever see that or have any familiarity with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think there used to be a flyer that was printed out with the lion and the tech shield and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after the golden age of tech, I guess would be when it came out.
Yes, that's right.
And these were all listed out. I will say that, I mean, other than general idea of like being at cause and so forth, I don't specifically remember them what they are specifically. So
Sure. Well, conceptually, the ideas and there were a lot of repeat concepts in these 76 reasons, but the basic idea was that training is not just something that you learn. It's something that now enables you to be in control and of your life, of life itself. Of training provides you the answers. See, as I said, one of the arguments is Scientology auditing is taking things away from you. It's taking away the charge. It's taking away the, all the crap, right? But training is giving you, is sort of filling in the blanks. It's giving you the information, which auditing doesn't give you. Auditing doesn't necessarily tell you or explain to you all the ways and means in which it's being done, or the various processes and what they're addressing, and all of the various processes and all the various techniques in Scientology, and there are a lot of them, all have a stated purpose, and a stated goal and a reason for doing it. You're going to do something called listing and nulling in this session, and you're going to do ARC break assessments in this session. And as a pre-clear, as a person receiving auditing, you don't care about this crap, right? It's like, okay, do whatever you're going to do to me. Just make me feel better.
Well, and so just to make a point on that.
Yeah.
So getting audited, your effect, which is not necessarily a good thing. It's not a bad thing all the time, but essentially you're not causing your improvement. And in fact, probably the best PCs or pre-clears who are getting audited are actually ones who have training. Because, and I don't know if this is true or not, but as far as I understood it, you would get through your auditing faster because you knew what was going on and you knew what to look for and so forth. You're not wasting your time humming and hawing about things, right?
Correct. And that was one of the arguments that was listed, was you'll get through your auditing faster. In fact, it was popularized in a number of promotional materials in Scientology over the years that trained Scientologists get through their auditing twice as fast. Like they even were like giving specific rates of, this is how you're gonna double your speed through your auditing, and therefore it's going to cost you a lot less.
Not 10x.
You're going to need all those hundreds and thousands of hours of auditing and all that.
Yeah.
And oh yeah. Here's escaping the cult versus practically quoting them. I wonder if they're pulling them out of the issue, because that's the thing exactly. Is it puts you at cause. It puts you in the driver's seat. It tells you why people act the way they do, so you don't have to be frustrated with them all the time and this kind of thing. So it's all about putting you in the driver's seat of your life, and that's what that whole train for life thing became a big promotional campaign through the 80s. Was you don't just train to audit people, you train because your life's going to be better as a result of it.
Yeah.
And which was funny because at the time, some Scientologists would tell me, sort of quietly, yeah, I really hate that campaign because it's all about getting audited. It's all about auditing, and you should want to be an auditor, and you should want to train to audit other people and help them. And, it shouldn't be so selfish, which I now laugh at because all of Scientology is nothing but selfish.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, so that was kind of, but it was an effort by Hubbard to sort of set a counter narrative, I think, that had probably grown through the 70s and 80s in Scientology during its boom period, real boom period, where people just wanted to get in session. I just want the auditing, just get me in session. And we called them professional PCs. And we looked down on them. We kind of, by the time I came around in the mid to late 80s, it was, oh, yeah, he's a pro PC, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And it was that kind of attitude. Now that's all they want, it seems like. But anyway, yeah. So this was kind of the flavor and attitude of training when I got in. At least it was important. It was something that was prioritized, and you were supposed to make time in your schedule as a Scientologist, not just to go in for session, but to get on course. And and starting from there, I guess we could say that the requirement to be on course was 15 hours a week. Where I was, if you weren't putting in 15 hours, you weren't going to be on course. They were pretty definite about it. So when I hit my first class, that was how I was told it was. Did you guys have minimum requirements in terms of time commitment?
There was certainly an expectation of a minimum. I think it was 12 and a half hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Could be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 2.5 hours, 5 days a week?
That's right.
Yeah, that's 12 and a half hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was 12 and a half hours was the expectation for a part-time student.
Yep.
But whether that was actually adhered to or not, they'd try to, but it was never fully adhered to. However, if you were scheduled and you didn't show up, then you would be sent to ethics.
Immediately and at once.
What's that?
Immediately and at once.
Yeah. And it was always that that fear that was happening, like, don't be late. Because if you're late too, like if you showed up 30 seconds late, even a second late, then that would be ethics for you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And and of course, when I joined staff, I was joining staff to go down to train to be a course room supervisor. So what that means is kind of laying out the sort of the look of this for anyone who doesn't know is what happens in Scientology is if you want to take classes, and we're talking about at the higher levels of all the things we're talking about here also apply in the public courses and the lower level courses, but they are sort of a lighter grade of enforcement. Like if you show up late to your first class or second class in Scientology at the lower and the public divisions, you might get a stern talking to or something. They're not going to send your ass straight to ethics and bust out the routing form, right? But when you're in the academy, when you're up in the major course area, once you're now doing real Scientology classwork, actual steps on the grade chart or prerequisites for that, they're all serious. It's all business. And I had my watch set to the second as the supervisor, as the guy responsible for the classroom. I checked it with time. This is all pre-internet, right? So I was constantly keeping my watch set to standard time because I was ruthless about that. If you were 1 second late, the policy is, off to ethics with you. So yes, okay. So I guess we should probably start with routing forms, or we can because that's how you get into the classroom. Everywhere you go in a Scientology organization to do anything, whether it's to get on to an auditing service or a training service, or even go see the ethics officer, or go get patched up in this repair area, or anything you're going to do, moving things around the organization, like your body, to go see people. You have a piece of paper called a routing form, and it's a form that routes you. It tells you what route to follow through the organization so that you can see everybody you need to see, get done what needs to get done, and get back to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's so like there is a question in here asking what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't have any pictures of a routing form, but essentially it's just um, a form, person's names on it, the name of the organization, and it's in triplicate, I believe, with carbon copy, and it just has like registrar as the first post, and then all the steps to signing up for a course, making sure all the papers, the contracts are signed, so you can't sue the church after when you realize it doesn't work. And then it sends you down to the academy. You meet the supervisor, and it's just a step by step. And it's actually an interesting concept now that I'm saying this,
Yeah.
and how it just creates robots out of all the staff members, and it's a obvious distrust for things to get done properly without exact micromanaging instructions.
That's right. And the
Right.
idea is that it formalizes or sets in stone as a standard set of actions what each staff member is supposed to do with you. So, so the idea is that even the person on the routing form being sent from one place to another can see right there on the form, okay, so step one is registrar, and it's step 1, 2, 3, 4 with that staff member. And each step they do, and they initial it. And then they go to the next step. So it really takes all the thinking out of the entire process of what to do with the student or with the pre-clear or whoever it is you're seeing to deal with them. Is the idea, right? It standardizes the lines of the organization, so to speak, is sort of the theory of it. But it does remove any and all initiative.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that it's inherently bad. It's good to have standard things like that happens in all areas of society now. You know, just to make things more of an an experience that is always the same.
Yep.
Kind of like the Starbucks model where it's just like, or McDonald's where you walk in there, it's always the same. You always get the same food. The quality's the same, everything, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. In fact, that's the franchise model.
Yeah, exactly.
And Scientology missions used to be called franchises.
That's right.
Right. Because Hubbard wanted same. It was uniformity. And you got to realize something about uniformity when it comes to human beings, right? We're not uniform. And we don't have the same uniform responses and reactions to things. But so the more you're trying to shove people down these kinds of routes of conformity, that itself becomes a kind of, let's get this person used to being controlled. Let's get this person used to being in conformity with what we want from them, right? And again, you know, you can take all this, you know, too far, but I think that it's just it's one of so many mechanisms in Scientology that reinforces conformity that it's worth commenting on.
Yep, and it's just a control mechanism.
That's right.
Like there's a comment here. Gabe says, don't forget they have to see the bookstore officer for all the materials. And that's one of the steps on the routing form is to sell the individual all the materials, and up to and including if they were to buy like a full package for their auditing training, like let's say from pro TRs all the way up to grad 5, you would sell them all those materials then.
That's right. All of it.
That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, it's like piles of stuff. Piles.
Yeah.
I mean, lecture packs, course packs, books. I mean, literally, if I put it from the floor, it would stack up to about here.
Easily.
Stuff. Easily, right? Yeah. And even pre-clears. I mean, this training thing, like I mentioned before with those reasons to train, I'm sure you must have used this as a bookstore officer. I sure as hell did as a reg when I was a salesperson, because it was commissions for another reason, by the way. But it was get those materials into their hands. And I would do a full briefing breakdown with every single person in front of me that I could get. Because each registrar in a church, if there's more than one, they kind of have their divvied up people. You get these guys, I get these guys, and they're kind of your, these are your little babies, right? And these other guys you don't try to sell because he's or she is dealing with them. And so I had my Rolodex, my people that I would sell to, and I was absolutely insistent, 100% of them, that I wanted them listening to lectures and I wanted them reading books. And I believed in the product, so it was easy for me to be insistent about that. It wasn't just for the commissions or the money. It wasn't at all. I really thought that their auditing would benefit by their learning what the hell they're doing and what's going on. And I thought that those books and lectures told them what was going on.
Well, yeah, of course it did.
Right. And so I was a big advocate for that. And I would spend more time selling that than I would the auditing, because the auditing was easy to sell. That was the materials and the training that was a little bit harder because it involves a more discipline and a more time investment from people.
Yeah, auditing, you just show up and sit down in the chair and think and whatever. Not, obviously there's a lot more to it than that, and definitely more damaging. I don't know if it's more damaging than training or not. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But with training, you had to work. Like, there was a lot of work to do to become an auditor. It's no small feat. There's a reason why there's not that many auditors in the world, because it's hard to do.
Yeah, it was.
And like, being an auditor, especially on staff in an organization that doesn't have a lot of auditors, it's not a thankless job, but it's a hard job.
Yeah.
You're always doing something, always.
Big time.
We had one grad 5 auditor in our organization, and he was so overworked. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, because the auditing, at the end of the day, everything, and as they say in Scientology itself, I mean, this is written in the policies, all roads lead to auditing.
Yeah.
If you are not selling and delivering auditing, you are a treasonous organization as far as Scientology is concerned, right? As a church, it's that simple. And that's because auditing is where most of the mental manipulation and emotional damage and dependency is created. So I don't really have a lot of, that's my opinion. My opinion is that auditing is more damaging, but it's a close call because, as we're going to go over, there's a lot of bullshit that happens to you in a Scientology classroom.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess we should get into it. So yeah, you get into the classroom with the routing forms, and now those things will get you all over the organization. They have lots and lots of them. I think there's probably about 60 or 70 different routing forms that each organization has standardly as part of its, this is how we run things here. And I used to write new ones when we needed them or revise them and stuff. So I was really familiar with routing forms. And I thought they were just this little, gem of genius on Hubbard's part, right? Because here you can have untrained, idiot staff who don't know what to do. Just do what it says on the routing form.
Yeah. Bring them here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Sign them up, sell them their materials. Okay, I'm supposed to sell you your materials now, and I can't really let you go until you buy them. So I guess we're going to, so why don't you just give me your credit card and let's get to it, right?
Yeah. You're not leaving until we get this step signed off, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Unless you manage to have a cool staff member who would just sign shit off for you anyway and send you on your way, right? Sometimes you'd have that. But when you arrive into the classroom, let's go over that. So let's say you make it all the way to the classroom. You pay for the services. You're sold on it. You're like, okay, I'm going to train in Scientology. I'm going to learn this stuff. So what happens to you is you go down to the classroom and you first hit a guy called the course administrator.
Yep.
Because he's the guy who handles the log books. They have log books, by the way. Even if they got 2 students in the classroom, they got logs and all these record keeping that goes on in Scientology. It's very bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And you also, by the way, have, we talk about PC folders and ethics folders. Well, you also have a student file created for you. Whole nother set of files for you about your classwork. And all of your write-ups and essays and assignments, all that goes in those folders, and all the coursework that when you finish a class, the check sheet goes in there. And that's how classes are run, is on check sheets. So you show up to see this course administrator, and he welcomes you to the class, gets your name in a logbook, make sure you paid for it, because you have to have that invoice. That's your ticket into the classroom. If you don't have an invoice, go away. Free service, free fall. Not delivering any free service around here.
Nope.
We're not a charity, damn it. And then they take you to the course supervisor, and the course supervisor is the one who actually gets you going. You have a intro. I think somebody asked about this. You have an introduction to the classroom the first or second time you show up there, where the supervisor shows you around, physically shows you the spaces, and what they consist of is a three-room or three division, you could say a three-part setup.
Yep.
Almost every check sheet kind of runs this way. Every class, in other words, run this way. Classes run on, let me see. Should I start with check sheets or the layout of the classroom?
Well, I think we can intertwine it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So you have a theory classroom.
Break down like different types. I guess you could break down different like aspects to the check sheet itself, like the theory, practical, etc.
Yeah. Well, okay, fair enough. So every single Scientology class, whether it's a kids course or whether it's the most advanced adult course, every one of them operates on what's called a check sheet. The class is the check sheet. You do the check sheet in order, step by step, read this chapter, write this essay, do this little demonstration. It's a series of actions you do, each one in sequence. You don't skip around. And you follow it 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through to the end. And you sign on the check sheet your initials to attest that you understand, have read, understand, and are totally happy with that step. Then you go to the next one. And that step-by-step process of learning is a Scientology class in a nutshell, right? Does that kind of fit that?
Yep, I would say so.
Cool. And the way the check sheets are organized is especially now, they used to be a little loosier-goosier with this, where you kind of be bopping back and forth. But the way it's kind of set up now is you have a theory classroom, which is like a library. It's quiet. Everybody in there is reading. They're just kind of, that's what they do in there. It's like a reading room or something, or a study room. And that's the theory classroom, where you read the books, listen to the lectures on headphones, or quietly do your classwork that you're just doing kind of solo, just by yourself, writing essays or whatever. But if you have to do a practice exercise of some kind, what they call drills, if you're going to drill something or actually go do something real with the course materials, that's where you go over into this other room, which is noisy, and that's called the practical course room. And ideally, there are 2 different supervisors overseeing both of those spaces, but most of the time it's one dude bopping back and forth between them.
Yeah. And in Vancouver itself, the academy was in the basement of this 100 and some odd year old building. You go down the stairs, you turn right. There, along the wall, there's like the success story wall. So people who completed courses, it'd get posted there. You walk in directly into the theory area, but the only difference between the theory and the practical is a very thin wall with large windows. They're glass windows, and then an open doorway with no actual door. It's just an open big old doorway. And I think it's probably about a 12 or 14 foot ceiling. So very open, very echoey. So if people were doing like big TR drills in the practical side, there's no way you're not being distracted by these people, like bull baiting or upper indoc TRs, where they're making a lot of noise and telling ashtrays to stand up and so forth and sit down in that chair. You're completely distracted. So it's not a good setup.
No.
And then, of course, the word clear is also in that same room. Like, it's not great. But orgs nowadays, like ideal orgs, would have completely separate course rooms for each. Sometimes even different courses would be in certain ones, like TRs and so forth.
That's right. They'll break down the classrooms into different class types and have different classrooms for them. Because some classes in Scientology have much more rigorous or involved details in delivering them than other classes. But generally speaking, that's why we're talking today in general terms about this, but fully acknowledging that there are different setups for different kinds of classes in some cases.
Oh.
And in the ideal orgs, one of the setups for them is that they have a separate closed off soundproofed room for the yelling at the ashtray part.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have an upper inductees room in the ideal org course rooms now, so you can go in there and scream and shout all you want at the ashtrays, and it's not going to disturb the rest of the class, right?
Poor ashtrays.
Oh,
Always getting yelled at.
Constant abuse. So okay, so you have the theory and the practical, right? And then and like I said, ideally separate ones. Now it can get so bad, I think somebody commented as well, that you can have the public courses shoved up inside the academy as well, and all the classwork is being done in one room because there's only one dude to oversee it all. I've done that. I did that for many years in when I was a supervisor, right? I ran all the stuff, but the way we're describing it is sort of how it's supposed to be laid out, right? And of course, it's never outside of the big Sea Org bases. I don't know too many places where they really do have it laid out, in conformance with all the policy. Yeah, they tend to shortcut all over the place because they just don't have enough people.
Yep.
And
that should be a pretty big indicator to Scientologists if you guys are watching.
Yeah.
When's the last time you had a fully staffed training area?
Exactly. Supervisor, word clearer, course admin, practical supervisor, and then even a lead supervisor over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? How often? How many orgs need that many people to deliver to the overwhelming demand that they are experiencing at this time?
They're just breaking down the door, Chris.
That's right. That's right. Now, policy is, by the way, it reminds me, policy is that it's one supervisor, one classroom instructor, supervisor person for 20 students. That's what the ratio is supposed to be. I supervise as many as 60, 80 people at a time. So,
oh my gosh.
So whatever. Works out. So, okay. So the so theory, practical. Oh, and then the third part would be the actual real world going out and demonstrating the skill set that you've learned on the theory and the practical. And for an auditor training class, for example, that would involve going and actually doing auditing. And there's supposed to be another course room for that where an auditing supervisor can actually oversee your sessions and be involved in the session, because it's a training session. It's not a formal professional session. The person receiving the auditing from students learning how to audit are generally other students. So nobody's paying for that. But it's supposed to happen under a supervised condition, not off in its own room, so that the student auditor can be monitored and watched and observed. And if he messes up, the auditing supervisor is not only trained to supervise classes, but is also a trained auditor. So he could literally step in and take over the session, deal with whatever needs to be dealt with, and then return the student auditor back into the session to finish it. So that's your ideal setup. I know of one org in the entire time I was overseeing training that had an auditing supervisor.
Right? It's really funny now that you're saying that too, because I'd kind of forgotten that. But when I did my method 1, which it's not really auditing, it's word clearing.
Yeah.
But it's still, you can get some pretty heavy reactions from it.
Yep.
It was done right kind of in the middle of the 2 course rooms. So literally every person that had to go from room to room, etc., they would it'd be like such interruptions.
Yeah.
Always, and if there was ever an issue, sorry to use big words here for Scientology words, but if you ever had to have your roods flown, which is like, checking to see if you have withholds or an ARC break, etc., it'd be done right there, which who's going to confess to some sort of withhold or something in front of the entire classroom?
That's right.
It's insane.
Oh,
But
the absolute worst was having to get off masturbation overts in front of the entire classroom, right? It's just like, forget it. I'm not
yeah,
going there. No way. It's just too embarrassing, you know?
yeah.
But that's, that's what's expected. I got my whole M1 in a classroom, my method one
Oh,
as well.
there you
Same
go.
thing from another student. And yeah, and that's exactly right. Oh yeah, good point, Lorna. That's right, because they are open 24/7, or not 24/7, but all the operating hours of the church, the classrooms are open, right? So it's 9 to
Yeah.
12, 1 to 6, and then 7 to 9:30, I think. Originally, the 15 hours thing I mentioned earlier came from the fact that orgs used to be open until 10. The classrooms went
Oh,
from 7 to 10 Monday through Friday. And I think they changed that to 9:30 in
mm,
policy. Some orgs would still be allowed to stay open until 10 if they wanted to be, if I remember the policy right, but most people cut it back to 9:30. And that's
right.
where the 12 and a half hours came in rather than the 15.
Yeah.
But that's the basic setup there. And the supervisor, okay, so let's talk about the supervisor for a minute, because it's a trained, very, very, very important role in Scientology. The course room supervisors are basically up there with the auditors as far as importance in Scientology. And the actual L. Ron Hubbard quote about it from 1971, a lecture called Training People to Train, which I listened to probably about 10 times, this briefing Hubbard gave about supervising. He said straight up, auditors are the most valuable beings on the planet, but course supervisors are actually more valuable than auditors because they make auditors.
Right.
Right. And that was kind of a rare quote to find in this, sort of half confidential briefing that nobody really had access to. But that was where that came from. And so us supervisors who train that way, we're quite hep on ourselves. We're so important.
Wow.
Yeah, we are the shit, man. We're the supervisors.
You're the unsung heroes.
That's right. That's right. And my initial staff training was supervisor training. I went down to LA and spent 4 months trying to get through it, and I failed. And then I went back a year later and got through it. And it was this extensive training where I had to become a word clearer first and learn how to do all of that, and then learn how to be a course room supervisor. And it was this big chunky class, and it was this pilot check sheet. I think I did like 3 pilot supervisor classes over the time I was in Scientology. So I was a really thoroughly trained supervisor.
Yeah.
Which, is giving me so many laurels to rest on now.
Hey, speaking of how amazingly trained you are, Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Or I should say Gabe's going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, there it is.
Do you want to explain what this is?
Absolutely. WIAC, what is a course? This was our Bible. And this was really the core policy letter, or the core instructions for how to run a Scientology classroom. It was all in this one policy. And it was a magical policy letter. It was magic, because all you had to do to have a booming, expanding, thriving classroom is comply with every line of this 1.5-page policy letter. It wasn't even very long. And magically, your course room was supposed to fill up.
Wow.
And if you were not filling up and booming and expanding, then clearly that meant that no matter how sparkly and clean and dusted and personnel full your course room was, it wasn't complying with what is a course.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how this policy letter was treated. It was magic. And the policy letter simply states what elements are required in order for there to be a classroom in Scientology. A course must have a supervisor. A course must have a course room. It must have materials. There's supposed to be a course admin. Ideally, there is a word clearer. It lays all these out line by line, point by point. And I'm totally just, throwing this all out from memory, because I haven't even looked at that policy letter in about 10 years now.
That's okay.
But I lived it. I breathed that policy letter,
Yeah. How old were you when you were, this time frame we're talking about, when you were the course supervisor?
I started 17. I started training as a soup when I was 17, and by the time I was 19, I'd gotten through all the training and gotten back to the org and was actually supervising classes. And I was trained at a Sea Org installation. down in LA, PAC. So I wasn't coming at it with a slovenly, you know, lazy class 5 attitude. Right?
How rude.
Right.
Our
That's how we thought
supervisors were
about it.
flag trained, okay?
Yeah, I was okay. I was told, okay, and I'm 53 right now. I was told that I was better than flag trained
Oh my goodness.
because we
Pumping
were
you up.
trained by a CMO int mission who was doing this special training program, you know, in every continental area and around the world. They were trying to, there had been L. Ron Hubbard back in 1971 had called a bunch of people to flag and done a special supervisor training. And so they were, and when he sent them all back to their orgs, they boomed Scientology, right? Well, you know, there were other elements at play. That's not actually what happened. They boomed Scientology by writing bad checks, is what happened. But they said it was this big supervisor thing as part of this big surge in Scientology in the early 70s. And so the effort in the 80s was to repeat that action. And so they had this special mission fired off to train all these hotshot supervisors. And that's the thing I went through. And I wasn't that hot and it wasn't that awesome, but that was how I got supervisor trained. So, and I did know my stuff as far as the supervisor stuff goes, you know. And when I went back as a 19-year-old, I rubbed everybody the wrong way because I was so harsh. And in a Sea Org course room down in PAC, that's how it's supposed to be. You're ruthless. In fact, that's the word that's used. Your supervisor is supposed to be ruthless.
Yep.
There's a supervisor's code
Yep.
of points that you follow. We memorized it. Every day we drilled it out loud, all as a group, chanting the different points of the supervisor's code until we knew it in our goddamn sleep, because part of the training was learning verbatim stuff. So that supervisor's code.
I kind of wonder, you guys leave a comment in our videos as you're watching this on the replay or whatever. Do you want us to go over the supervisor's code? I'm sure we could get a hold of it. If you don't have it, then.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that I could recite. I can't recite it all verbatim at this point, but some of the points, you know, the supervisor should a supervisor should invalidate a student's mistake ruthlessly and use good ARC while doing it. That's the supervisor's code point, right? So you invalidate. You made a mistake, you fucking bastard.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, but man. I'm doing it with ARC, right?
That makes it okay.
You know, a supervisor must not become emotionally involved with students of either sex while they're under his or her training, right? So you're not supposed to date your students or get involved with them or any of that. Stuff like that. Yeah, we could totally go there. But I think there's about 18 or 19 points on that code, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So there's all this, you know, sort of stuff to being a supervisor. It's supposed to be a position of some importance in Scientology, and it's not a position where the supervisor is a teacher. And that's the real point to bring up about supervisors, at least to start with, is they're not the ones doing the teaching. Right. They're supervising the classroom. Yep. And this is where things start getting bad. Because it's, you know, we've been talking about all the administration of it and the setup of it and everything. But then once you get introduced to the classroom and you figure out the 3-room setup and you figure out you're on a check sheet and you're going to be going through these steps, okay, good. Now you're ready to get started and you sit down and you get going. And the supervisor's job now is to get you through those materials in such a way that you fully understand it all very conceptually and that you can do what it is you're being trained to do. Because usually when it comes to Scientology classes, it's not just a big theoretical. There's usually you're doing something as a result.
Yeah.
That changed actually with Miscavige and that whole golden age of knowledge stuff, because now everybody's just reading all these books, not really doing much with them, which is interesting. Scientology has become a lot more theoretical.
Yeah. It's cheaper for the organization because all they have to do is create the materials, they sell them, and they just go off. And in fact, a lot of the courses that are done now on the basics and so forth are extension courses.
Yeah.
So they're just done at home. You don't even need a supervisor. You just need someone to, as the lessons come in, to mark them.
That's right.
And that's it.
I happen to believe that David Miscavige is subconsciously destroying Scientology training. And I think he's been on that role ever since the 90s. That's what I think. I think he's actively trying to undermine and destroy it, which is not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. But I'm just saying, in terms of from a Scientology point of view, it certainly is. Because he's de-emphasized it and deprioritized it, and the message of training now in Scientology world is so different from how when I first got in. And I mean by that quite simply, when you in the 80s and early 90s, all the way up until then, around that time, if you came in and wanted to be an auditor, you were respected. Like people looked up to you. You were like, oh, you're an auditor in training. Shit. Oh, you're an auditor. Fuck. Whoa. You know, like that was a position.
Yeah.
You know, you had credentials. You had like some authority.
And the higher level you are, the more respect you got. Like a class 8 gets so much reverence. Like, oh, we're not worthy, you know, like it's amazing.
Yeah. Big time.
People will just do whatever they say. No, they won't question it because they're standard and therefore it must be okay.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And now it changed in the 90s to OTs were more important. And IAS patrons were more important. And that's how the money shift happened. You know, it was always about the money, but it's funny how the priorities, you know, in the promotion and the culture of Scientology switched, and that was 100% Miscavige.
Yeah.
Okay, so supervisors, yeah. So what they do is basically the bottom line to this is, and jump to the chase, is you find yourself as a student in a Scientology classroom very quickly within the first session of attending study and getting supervised. You quickly realize that you're not just having some guy there in the classroom to answer your questions or help guide you or give you references to things. You're being surveilled. This guy's watching you, or this woman is watching you actively the entire time you're studying. They're supposed to have eyes on you and every other student. And generally speaking, it's not hard to do because Scientology classrooms don't usually have a lot of people in them.
Exactly.
You know, I've been a one-on-one where I'm standing there and there's one student in the classroom all afternoon, and all I can do is stare at this dude the entire time.
It's the worst.
There's nothing else to do.
As a student, that's the worst case scenario.
It was the worst.
Because the best case scenario is the student is busy working with another trouble student, and it's eating up their time, and so you can get away with yawning and daydreaming and all this fun stuff.
That's right. That's exactly right. And just so you guys know, my vacation has not started yet. It starts in a couple of days.
Well, and you're still going to be doing the show with Tony every Monday.
Correct. And I'm still doing that every Monday, and I give myself the right to show up on live streams whenever I want. So,
well, that's an invitation for me, I think.
Pretty much. So, okay. So the surveilling. So let's talk about that a little bit, because it's not just a dude staring at you. There's actually more to it than that. It's infinitely complicated. What you learn as a student very, very quickly, even before you've even started learning the study tack, even if you're in there on your very first class, you find out within a day or two of showing up in the classroom that the supervisor is watching you to see if there are certain things that you do that you might not even be aware of doing, that to him are going to communicate, and I'll use him even though I mean him or her, right? That are going to communicate you're having troubles with your study, or there's something amiss with your study, and the supervisor's job is to come in, stop you, and correct that.
Yep.
And that's because the supervisor is trained to watch for certain physiological, as L. Ron Hubbard puts it, physiological phenomena. Right? Things you're going to do, things you might even say. And these are supposed to reflect troubles. And there are these 3 barriers to study in study tech There are other problems that can come up in the course of study than these three things. There's false data and crash and amuse and other stuff. But these three things tend to be the ones that get harped on all the time and are the most important, right? Which is the misunderstood word, or a lack of mass, and a skipped gradient, or you're taking on too much too fast. Those three things. And the misunderstood word simply means there's a word on a page that you don't fully understand. If I were to ask you what it means, you wouldn't be able to tell me. But it gets a lot worse than that. It's not just you can't tell me. It's if you hesitate in any way in telling me. Exactly. So it might look like this, right? If I came up to you, Jeff, and you're sitting there studying, and I notice that you yawn. Hey, Jeff, I just see you yawning there. How's it going?
Oh, yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Just had a late night last night.
Oh, really? Did you get enough sleep for study today?
Yeah, about 8 hours.
Yeah? Okay. So a good night's sleep, and yet you're yawning. I'm wondering if there might be some word there you went past that you didn't fully understand.
Nope.
No? Nothing? You don't think so?
Nope.
Tell you what, why don't you go ahead and just take a look back over what you were studying there, and let's just see if there might be anything you don't have any doubts about, any uncertainties about any of those words or symbols, any of the grammar, anything.
No, I'm good.
No, nothing at all, huh?
Yeah, I can carry on now. It's fine.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you were yawning, so I'm going to have to pursue this, and this is how this would go. I'm being really super nice as a supervisor right now, right? But I'm not going to stop until he gives me a word or symbol he doesn't understand.
Yep.
And it will get to the point where I might say in this back and forth with him, I might go, okay, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you go ahead and let me ask you, when were you not yawning? When were you flying?
Yeah, paragraph beforehand.
Paragraph before.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Here's what I want you to do, and I just work with me on this, all right? I want you to go back to before you started yawning. Right before that, what were you reading? Where? Show me on the page.
About all the accomplishments that LRH says that he had.
Excellent. Okay, here's this accomplishments thing, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start spot checking him because he ain't finding it and he doesn't look like he wants to find it. So now I'm going to have to prove to him that it's there as the supervisor, right? Now my task is to relentlessly ask him the definition of each word. And I'll start maybe with the unusual words or the big words, but I'm going to get him. Whether it's a symbol like the period or a comma or an apostrophe, or it's, some big word, or, hey, Jeff, what's the definition of the word are here?
Like ARE? Indicating that something is the way it is, or that group is the way it is.
Is the way it is, huh? What does that mean?
That
flunk. Gotcha.
Dang
right?
it.
Just because he couldn't answer right off. He was thinking about it. Nope. You don't know it well enough. You just don't know it well enough. Maybe you know it. Maybe you kind of know it. But we're going to have you go over this again, right? And that's it. That's as far as I need to go. As a supervisor, I'm done. You clear that word in a dictionary, right? You look that up, and I'll get back to you in an hour because the word "are" has about 20 definitions.
Dang it. Why do you have to ask the small common words?
Exactly, right? Because the small common words, it was always my go-to, right? I could always get you on those if I can't get you on anything else. Because the supervisor's job becomes alleviate the yawn. Not does this guy understand it? If I ask you, okay, what are you reading? Oh, I'm reading blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. What does it mean? Oh, it means blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's all true. Okay, carry on. No, I can't do that. As a supervisor, I can't do that. L. Ron Hubbard is crystal clear. If you're yawning, there's a misunderstood word 100% of the time. And it would actually be a criminal offense on my part as a technical staff member to let you go past that misunderstood word, right?
It's literally a suppressive act.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. And we took that crap seriously, right? Because this is the delivery of Scientology. This is the jewels. This is getting it across to you. This is the second most important thing going on in Scientology outside of what's going on in those auditing rooms.
Yep.
And that was the way we thought about it as technical staff members in Scientology, whether we were auditors or supervisors, is we were the shit. We were at the core of it, right? Everything else served us. You know? So that was kind of the attitude of the tech divisions, is we were badasses, right? And Miscavige actually undermined that whole thing too. Right? He took all the pride out of technical staff by just making them so, by penalizing and punishing them for doing their jobs, is what he did.
Right.
But anyway, I digress. So the physiological phenomena thing, though, is no joke. That's exactly the supervisor's specialty. It's not about learning, you know, the theory of learning, or, you know, how to communicate ideas to people, or how to deal with learning disabilities that people might have. There is nothing on any of that. The only disability you got in a Scientology classroom is words you didn't understand, or and there are certain phenomena, certain visible things that you'll do that will demonstrate you have a misunderstood word: yawning, sleepiness, going blank on what you are reading or studying, right? You get to the bottom of the page and you don't remember what you just read. There's a word, right? Let's go find it. And students in Scientology are trained and encouraged to pay attention to themselves while they're studying, so that if they hit that blankness or this stuff starts happening, they don't need a supervisor intervention. They'll do it themselves.
Yeah.
And
it's
that's
a self-policing society.
That's right. And you get policed into this. All right. And that's the supervisor's main function as a first line of indoctrination into how Scientology operates, is you are taught very carefully in a Scientology classroom that how you feel physically is more important than whether you're actually understanding the information.
Yeah, exactly.
It's weird. It sounds weird because it is.
Yeah.
But that's the policy, right? And even in the bulletins on clearing up words and stuff, Hubbard literally writes, the student must develop this within themselves. He calls it a discipline that you have to instill in the students to learn to pay attention to themselves and deal with this.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't, and some people take to this faster than others, then it will be enforced on you. And that's the job of the supervisor. And I'll do it in a nice way, like I was doing with Jeff just now. It's a nice, friendly conversation. We don't have to make this vicious and mean, but it will go there if you resist. You know,
well, I mean, like you were saying about the supervisor's code, though, was that you are to be ruthless with ARC.
Correct.
Like,
correct.
I don't recall being like, I never got yelled at as a student, but I was forcefully spoken to in a way to communicate in no uncertain terms that something had to be a certain way.
That's right.
But it wasn't like they were calling me names or anything like that, right?
No, and it doesn't degrade down to that sort of thing. Supervisors are held to standards of professionalism, at least, you know, in decent orgs they are. And you're not sitting there calling your students names and stuff. In fact, that was one of the places I got in trouble. Is I was a little bit of a smartass as a 19-year-old, all full of myself. And so, you know, I would piss off some older generation Scientologists who'd come in to study, and I'd be like, oh, well, let me see where you're at tonight, young man, you know, and I'd just be kind of, you know, joking around, and they didn't appreciate that. Like, don't call me young man, you fucking jerk. So I would sometimes get, you know, people's temperaments. Okay, so yeah, so the physiological stuff with the MUs was the yawning, not so bright, blank spots, that kind of thing, right? You're looking for that. Bored, disinterested, you know. But this could cross over into lack of mass, where you're reading about the classic thing, and I might as well say it this way, is, you know, you're reading about tractors, but there's no tractors. You never saw one, you never touched one, you know, maybe you saw a film that had one in it one time and that was about it. You really don't know shit about tractors, and you're sitting here trying to learn all about them. Well, it would really behoove you to go put your hands on one. And that's not wrong. I mean, in terms of learning, that's true. But
yeah, obviously.
But that's as far as it goes, as far as the truth goes, because then we get into all the physiological phenomena connected with people studying something who don't have the thing there in front of them. They can get antsy, their stomach can hurt, they can get headaches, their eyes hurt. They get bored, disinterested. They're doodling. They're kind of off in somewhere else, which kind of looks a lot like an MU. So you kind of have to sit down and figure out what's going on with the person and find out if it's this lack of mass, as they call it. You have the, the mass of the thing is not there.
Yep.
And you'll get busted for this the same way you'll get busted for the MUs, right? If you're sitting there doodling or goofing off or staring off into space, or you're getting a headache or something. I had more students. Oh, I got this headache, man. And it's like, okay, over to the clay table. Right?
Yep.
Because the two ways you solve the mass is you have a little demo kit of little bits and pieces of crap that you can use to, do a little demonstration. Oh, this pen will be a man and he will walk down the street and he will, and that's supposed to be some approximation of the mass of the thing, right? You can symbolize it.
Yeah.
Or if that's not working and the headache is persisting or the stomach feeling is persisting or you're just not with it today, you go over to the clay table and you take pieces of clay and you literally form them and mold them into concepts that you're reading or learning about. Yeah. Go make a tractor out of clay. Right? Go get some pictures of a tractor and put it in 3 dimensions. And this is supposed to resolve the headache. All I can say is, suggestion is a powerful drug. Because
and just time.
Yeah, and time. That's right. That's exactly right. So, we can get to that actually. So that's your lack of mass, and then the third and final one that really hardly manifested ever in terms of physiological stuff was that skipped gradient thing, right? Yeah. Where you're taking on too much too fast,
confused or reeling.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's a confusion or a reelingness. That goes with this one, right? It's like, oh my God, what the? I don't get any of this. It's got guys get really upset, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay, we got to cut this back. You missed something 50 pages ago, kind of.
And it's so basic.
Yeah.
It's just obvious.
That's right.
I'm not going to go and try to play a really hard guitar lick without learning my chords, right? My fingers would just fall off and I would probably explode.
Exactly.
Right.
In other words, I'm not picking up a guitar and playing Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
Not happening. Yeah. Right.
I'm not going to break out an epic solo right now because I don't even know how to my A and D and all that, so.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, we would, these were the things that supervisors are trained to watch for. And there's other things, there's a couple other things that can get thrown in the mix, but those are the biggest things. Then the other part of running a classroom from a supervisor point of view is late students, tardy students, students that are being bitchy or moany with you or resisting you or telling you to fuck off, or rude students or anything like that. And I mean any even hint of somebody giving me shit.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to ethics, right? I'm not going to deal with this because it was never my job as the supervisor. And Hubbard makes it clear in the policies. It's not your job to deal with outside of course room problems or issues or ethical lapses on the part of your students. If they show up, you train them. And if that crap is coming in the course room or they're directing it to you, go talk to the ethics officer. And out comes this routing form, student to ethics. The number one routing form in all of Scientology is the student to ethics routing form.
Yeah.
Probably used more than all the rest combined.
Yep. It happened very often. I've been on a few of them myself.
That's right. And then why don't you say what happens in terms of the ethics thing? What happens when you go on the routing form and end up in front of an ethics officer?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like the first thing, like if you are acting up or a situation has become to light that needs to be dealt with, or if you're late constantly for course, whatever, you're put in this routing form and then you're sent, in my case, to the 3rd floor with this routing form, and it would have a report attached to it as to what's going on. So then you hand this yourself. Usually, I mean, maybe you're supposed to have someone bring you there, but in our org, it was just a here's the routing form. Go see the ethics officer. Of course, you knew where you were going because you've been there multiple times. At least that was it in my case. I knew the quickest way to get there. And
the course admin is supposed to be the one taking you there, but often it was just get the fuck out of here.
I actually don't know if we've ever had a course admin in our org. Maybe once.
Yeah,
anyway,
very few. Very few.
Yeah, it's a weird post, right? So then anyway, so you show up at ethics and you say, here you go, and you're looking all dejected, and you know you're just going to get shit for something or have to write up OWs or whatever the handling is for the situation. And then once that handling is complete, then the ethics officer will sign that off on the routing form, and then you'll get sent back down to the course room. You are not allowed to go to the course room or be anywhere near tech lines until that ethics situation's handled, period. Like it doesn't matter if you have $100,000 worth of auditing sitting there or all your courses paid for. If you're in ethics, you are nowhere near tech.
Correct.
Because Scientology believes that in order to get tech in, you have to have ethics in first.
Correct.
And it won't work on you. That's the reason why Scientology doesn't work, is because your ethics are out. It's not Scientology, it's your ethics. And it's one of the biggest victimization aspects of Scientology.
Huge.
And you hear it from every single person who speaks out, is that it's your fault. You did it. It has nothing to do with Scientology.
Correct. That's right.
So, anyway,
sorry?
No, yeah, and then once you get your ethics in, quote unquote, whatever it is, then you're allowed to get back onto the course room.
Yeah. No, that was a great point. That's a really important point, actually, because it's a massive control point. Because you learn again quickly as you're becoming acclimated to this new environment of the Scientology world that you're in, right? Especially at the major services level, where you're actually now a Scientologist doing real Scientology, that they don't fuck around. And if you're there asking a bunch of questions and being resistive and creating a problem for the supervisor all the time, and you're the squeaky wheel, okay, just get your ass to ethics. Just go, right? I don't want to hear it, because the supervisor's not there to deal with all your questions. The supervisor's job is not to answer even one of them.
Nope.
And this is so important to understanding the sort of authoritarian environment or the framework of control that's laid out in the course room. Is supervisor's not there to be friendly and nice and warm with you. They often try to be, but it is a ruthless dictatorial position whose job is to impart that data to you, and no one cares what you think about it.
Yeah.
They just want to know if you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they'll drag you kicking and screaming over the finish line of the class, as long as you can do what you're supposed to do. Audit a session, word clear somebody, whatever it is you're being trained to do. And so, that they're not, anyway, so resistance is futile, I think, is my point, right? As you put up these like efforts to try to keep some independent thinking, engage in some critical thinking. You're sitting there. I mean, you just imagine what would happen if you're sitting there in the classroom and you're reading, a basic Scientology text like 9x55 or, something pretty core, right, to Scientology. And Hubbard says like, for example, Hubbard says any situation, no matter how tense or involved or angry or just any dispute, no matter how awful it is, can be resolved with communication alone. And you go, well, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know that would have worked with Hitler. I mean, I'm not sure communication alone is always going to solve a problem. Well, okay. Is there a word there you don't understand?
Yep.
Right? Well, wait a minute. Hang on. No, I don't. I understand the words. I just don't know that this is always true. Okay. Yeah. Totally get it. Here's the supervisor, right? Totally get it. Yep. So is there a word there you don't understand?
Yeah. And I know, it's just like, it's talking to a wall.
Oh, completely.
Like completely.
You can say, and you will be assimilated. That's exact. Borg
Yeah.
is actually where I was going. It's exactly right.
Yep. Yeah, you can say anything and it can make complete and utter sense from a
Yep.
critical thinking standpoint or just a reality like duh. Um, but it doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's a word. The only reason you're having these uh, different thoughts or argumentativeness is a result of words you don't understand.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
And
And
it's hard to think.
if that's tried, and if they work and work and work on that, and you're just being the motherfucker, as like, no, it's not a word, and you're answering all their questions, and you're doing all the stuff to demonstrate that you actually do understand the material, and it's not resolving, you're going to ethics.
Yeah,
Because
because
tech
the
is
tech
not
isn't
going
going
in,
in.
right?
Yeah, tech's not going in. Therefore, your ethics are out.
That's right. And
It's
that's
so
what's
obvious.
assumed. That's
Yep.
the assumption. Okay, you're going to ethics. Now
Yep.
you might go, strictly speaking, according to policy, you might go via qual, which is another division, right? There's ethics as a division in Scientology, and there's qual, which is your corrective division.
Yeah.
Sort of your quality control, you could imagine it to be, right? That's division 5. And they're supposed to send you to ethics via qual, but often your ass is just going to ethics.
Well, qual's too busy, right? So
that's right, because you can't disagree. Exactly, you can't.
yeah.
There's no getting around that. And the first time, the way I was broken, on that point, and I mean broken like a Bronco, is I was on my first course. It was Pro TRs, so I was 15 years old, and I'm in the classroom, and there was something Hubbard said. It was the first line of a chapter in Dynamics 55, and I just could not get my wits around it. I just did not. I was like reading and reading and reading. No, the sentence doesn't make any sense. And I kept telling the supervisor, this sentence doesn't make sense, man. And he's like, okay, is there a word? Is there a word? Is there a word? And I was like, no, there's not. And I was so resistive. And he finally kind of hauled me out of the classroom with another student, put me into a room separate from the classroom, and had me do the reading aloud method 9, word clearing.
Yep.
Where you have to take the text and read it out loud to another person. And if you fuck up once, if you screw up on anything, hesitate, blink in the wrong place, what's your word? Right? And you're going to find your word. And I was forced to do that as a very thorough way of finding my MUs, because they couldn't find them any other way. And the supervisor's final words to me on that were, because I was like, it's not a misunderstood word. I was still engaging in independent thinking until he just looked at me and practically yelling. He didn't yell, but he was pissed. And he's like pointing at me, and he's like, I'm the supervisor. You're the student. You have a misunderstood word. I say you do. Start, right? Because I didn't want to get word clean.
Tone 40.
Like, okay, fine. I will do this.
Can I give you some validation though, Chris?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that this was before the Golden Age of Knowledge release.
Oh, well before. Yeah.
So therefore, you're probably right, because it must have just been something wrong with an apostrophe or something that didn't make sense. And David Miscavige fixed it for you, so now you can go read that again.
Oh my God, I need to go back right now and restudy all of it. Yeah, it's a harsh customer experience. Yeah, it's a harsh one. But that's the attitude, right? The supervisor's in charge, and you don't fuck around with the supervisor. And and what the soup says goes. And that's how the classroom is run. It's not a matter of you're there to have independent thinking or to take in this information and contribute to it and add to it and that kind of thing. It's not that kind of setup. It's, this is what it says. You duplicate it. You understand it. And that's all there is to it. And I don't want to hear anything else about it, right? Except maybe your personal realizations if you have wins while you're reading it. I'm interested in that. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it. Right? Yep. That's kind of the attitude.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So
I'll tell you what, we could probably go on for about at least 2 or 3 hours more.
We could.
We're coming up on an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I think we'll probably start wrapping up, but I have a lot of questions I've started. I think we could probably pop some of those off before we go.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Cool.
We
Here's a good
definitely
one.
covered what we wanted to today in terms of the basic organization of it.
Yeah.
And the kind of layout. So in future, I think if we say supervisor or word clearer or, course admin or something, or the theory or practical rooms, you guys will know what we're talking about now. So that was kind of the
Exactly.
point of today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here's gonna be one. This is gonna be a trigger warning for all of y'all. So get ready for this. If you were in Scientology, any interesting thoughts on chain words or word chains?
Yes. Okay, sure. We could do this. This involves basically when you're using the e-meter to clear up words. There are 9 different forms of word clearing in Scientology as formalized procedures, and a bunch of them involve the use of the e-meter. It's not just used in auditing, it's used in other places in Scientology too. And in fact, when you go to ethics, you might get an ethics interview on the meter too.
Yep.
Ideally, that's how it's supposed to be done. But in word clearing, if you're on the meter, not only are you supposed to finish clearing all the definitions of the word that you're looking up and use them all in sentences, there's a whole formalized procedure to it. And you clear up the etymology and you clear up all the synonyms and idioms and usage notes. I mean, you really thoroughly go through everything in the dictionary on this word. At the end of that, the needle is supposed to be doing this kind of a motion on the dial. It's called a floating needle. It's just rhythmic back and forth kind of an action that indicates that you are done and you've reached the end result desired of that misunderstood word. It means you should understand it now. I feel so much better, and your needle is floating. But if it's not floating, right? You're sitting there on the meter and the needle's just sitting there, and you finished clearing the word. You went through all that stuff. And you're like, hey, I get it. I understand the word. And you feel fine.
Mm-hmm.
No FN, no floating needle. The word clearer, the person who's running the meter, now has to ask you, is there an earlier similar misunderstood word? Now you got to go chasing that, right? And you got to go back in your memory to some word that to you connects to this word that is similar in some fashion that you ran into earlier in your life.
Yeah.
So you're clearing up apple. And the guy goes, well, I don't really totally get what a peach is. I know it's a fruit, but I'm not really clear on it. And and they were trying to tell me this when I was 5 or whatever. There's your earlier similar. Okay. Haul out the dictionary, clear up the word peach now, go through that whole procedure. Needle better be floating. And if it's not, is there an earlier similar? And you can get into past lives doing this. I did. So.
Yeah. Well, it's because if it doesn't float, you can't stop.
That's right.
That's the standard rule.
That's right. And so you have to find an earlier similar. Or, of course, procedurally, you could say, okay, well, if there is no earlier similar, the guy's like, I don't know, man, nothing's coming to mind. You just go, okay, well, is there anything more to this word? Anything more to this word that you're kind of hung up on? Do we need to come up with some more sentences? You try to get creative because all you're trying to do is get that goddamn needle to float, right? And earlier similar or not, that's what you want. But generally speaking, a chain of words or word chains are, going down that line. Now, there's another word chain that I'm realizing he might be asking about as well, which is you could find in clearing the word apple that in the definition of the word, maybe it says, a fruit that does not contain nectar or some shit, right? And now you're like, what's nectar? I don't know what nectar is. All right, let's look that up. And now you're on apple to nectar, which then leads you to, I don't know, honeybee or pollen or some other word. And you can end up on a word chain where you're clearing it. You're in the middle of clearing up 4 or 5 different words on or off a meter. This can happen. And then you got to climb back up the chain, so to speak, in order to get through it. And I've seen people on word chains for days. They leave class in the middle of it and they come back and they're picking it back up again.
Dude, my dad was the unequivocal king of word chains.
Really?
I'd see, we wouldn't always be on course together, but I'd be seeing him. He'd have his demo kit all over the place, like 6 dictionaries open, and I was just like, "Oh, that looks rough." And
Oh,
he'd be working on it for at least an entire session of course, 2.5 hours,
yeah.
just trying to clear this one word chain.
Yeah, that's right.
Brutal.
I had a whole little special administrative way of writing it all down on word chains in the because the like in auditing, by the way, word clearing sessions are also written down
Yep.
and put in your folder. So it's not just the auditing sessions where your that's being kept track of. All your student activity and word clearing stuff is also being kept track of too, which is just an interesting point. But
Yeah.
we would have all kinds of little administrative tricks to try to keep up with people, so we could keep up with their word chains and stuff.
Absolutely. Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah. What else we got?
Um, well, so we can go with this one here. We're gonna keep it a little bit light here. Um,
Oh,
Me
sure.
and
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Is there any aspect of training that you actually enjoyed? I'll
Hell
let
yes,
you
I
answer
did.
that first.
Yeah, I can talk about that for sure. There were lots of times I enjoyed training versus auditing. I mean, training for me was much more relevant to the way I think about things and helpful to me in understanding things or coming to an understanding that I thought reflected reality.
Mhm.
But I love learning. I've always loved learning and getting new perspectives on things and learning, new ways of looking at things, new perspectives, right? Has always excited me. And Hubbard presented a lot of interesting ways of looking at stuff. I mean, they were all bullshit, but it was still interesting at the time in that world.
Mhm.
And thinking that he was giving me the truths of people, the tone scale and the ARC triangle and the KRC triangle and these various mechanisms of thinking about how people operate, and of course always being super super interested in all of, for me, in the history,
Yeah.
the whole track stuff, the what was happening 10 million years ago stuff.
Yep.
And there's certain lectures you can find and dig up where they go into that stuff. So I enjoyed the hell out of all that stuff, and that was one of the reasons. That was what gave me the certainty that I'm always going on about in Scientology. It was the training. The auditing wasn't really putting me in a place of certainty, but the training was, and
Yeah.
the culture was. Those are the two things that for me created all of that. What about you?
Definitely, like, you hit on it, the whole track stuff,
Yeah.
the electrifying, Marcab Confederacy and all this, like, stuff, implant stations and all this stuff was just phenomenal to me. Um, and it really piqued my interest in something. Actually, one of the reasons why I stayed in Scientology was because I'm a huge not I don't say believer, but I love the idea of other life, elsewhere, and aliens and so forth, whether it's true or not. We won't get into right now, but I just found like this confirmation of my beliefs, so like unequivocal and explained in detail and with years, and I always thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And then of course, I just liked the idea of certainty because I've always been a very unconfident, unsure person
Yeah.
for myself and just life in general.
Yeah.
And so having that, like, this is the way it is. There is no other way. Follow this and this will work.
Yeah.
Um, that was really like, I would say, like, kind of comforting for me, where I just knew this was true,
Yeah.
even if I didn't know anything else was true.
That, that nails it.
Yeah.
And it gave me the feeling also, by the way, because people will ask a lot. It just occurred to me. Well, how come you didn't know, or how come it didn't all fall apart for you in the face of this other information or this other information, of physics and science and this kind of stuff? Because I didn't need to go look at those things. I had all my answers right here.
But also that's just psych teaching.
Exactly.
That's
That's
psych school stuff. That's
that's right.
that's muggle stuff, to use
Yes,
a different word.
that's right. That's
um,
exactly right.
it's and it doesn't matter because anything you learn in school about life, it doesn't matter because you created that.
That's right.
Like, you created physics.
That's
And
right.
the only reason that physics is because you are making it that way right now.
That's right.
In
That's
order
right.
to
That's your advanced explanation for it. You come to that place. And
yeah,
then because by the time you're at that place, you literally don't even care what Carl Sagan or Stephen Hawking or Neil deGrasse Tyson or any of these science guys have to say, because you know they're just talking right out of their implants.
yep,
You know, that kind of crap.
exactly. So, there you go.
Cool.
Um, here's one for you. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what was your, Scientology IQ? Mine was 168, I think.
Wow. Wow.
I really got to know that IQ test real well.
Oh, yeah. No, me too. I can't remember because I didn't think it went that high. So I can't remember right now what my IQ was.
I'm a genius
Yeah, it was high. I
in
mean, it
Scientology.
was, well, there was only 2 or 3 versions of the IQ test. And after you take it and then start grading it for other people,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, yeah. I
It's so
could get
dumb.
the complete battery of Scientology tests done, start to end. IQ test, leadership, personality, and what was the other one? There was IQ.
Leadership.
Oh, aptitude. The aptitude test, which was
Yeah,
a timed test. Usually took about a minute and a half or something, right?
yeah.
I could get all 4 of those tests done in about 20, 25 minutes by
There
the
you
time
go.
I was done. Yeah. So
Super genius.
that's right.
It's all garbage anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Such garbage.
But you're a smart guy regardless, so
What
cool.
else we got here?
I think that's gonna be it for today. We have some more
All right.
questions, but,
Well,
um,
there was one question that definitely made me laugh just now. The KFC triangle. It's chicken gravy and biscuits, right?
yeah. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, KFC triangle. There it is.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. That makes me hungry, actually.
That's right, me too. I started thinking about that. Well, this was fun. This was fun. I enjoyed this.
Absolutely. And so what we'll do is we'll plan a next one. We'll go over, I think probably next, I think we should delve a little bit into basic courses and the intro course
Yes.
aspect of Scientology, because that part of it is the thing that catches people.
Yes.
It's the big wide net that they use to catch all the people, and then from there they kind of filter them down and then get those hardcore Scientologists who are donating thousands and thousands and millions of dollars towards more services. So
That's
I
right.
think they deserve a very thorough going over.
I agree completely. In fact, I want to throw out a little request to everybody. I
Mhm.
don't usually do this, but I have an extensive library of Scientology digital materials, and I have a bunch of hard copy stuff, but it tends to be mostly the advanced stuff. I don't have the basic course stuff, and I definitely don't have any of the actual life improvement course packs of the like 20 or 21 different classes they offer now. They have time management classes and the classic, personal values and integrity and the ups and downs in life and all the classic stuff. But they've got all these other, kind of newer things put together over the last 10 years or so too. And I bring this up because if any of y'all have these things, I cannot order them online, and I can't go down to my Church of Scientology here in Denver and buy one of these packs. They for obvious reasons, right? They're not gonna give me the time of day. But if any of y'all have any of those packs, it'd be awesome to get hold of one, because I'd love to scan it and actually show everybody the actual materials and what modern Scientology looks like now. So if any of y'all have any of those things, email me, reach out to me, and maybe we can arrange getting that.
That'd be really cool. I'd love to see them too.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I'll scan them and then we can throw them up and do a little show and tell with those.
I'm sure Scientology would hate that. So
Exactly.
that makes me happy.
Excellent.
All
Well,
right,
thank you.
guys. Thanks for joining. Do make sure that you support both of our channels, Chris Sheldon MSc and mine is PTS for Life. If you'd like to support our channels in a financial way to help keep the lights on, quite literally, you can buy myself a coffee. There's a link in my description, and you can support Chris with PayPal, Venmo, or purchasing his amazing book. Probably until next week. Have a good week.
Bye, guys.